Hello everyone. Let's start today's lecture. And this is the question which I gave you as a homework in the last video. So let me quickly explain how to solve it. Many of you have solved it. And in this explanation, I will try to explain the same thing again, that is equilibrium condition, how to solve the questions, how to draw the free body diagram, and all that. So it says a body of mass 5 kg suspended by strings making angle 60 degree and 30 degree with horizontal as shown in the figure. So the figure. What you do, you draw the free body diagram. That means you consider this 5 kg block and try to draw all the forces that are going to act on this. You are drawing it separately, right? So there's going to be a tension force acting like this, which will be known as T1, and it is shown there. So this is on the string at the point where the string is connected and along the string. So it's along the string means it is making angle 30 degree with the horizontal. Now similarly from horizontal at angle 60 degree there's another, you can call it as a T2. So these are the two tensions that you need to show in free body diagram. Apart from this, there's going to be mg force which is going to act downside. So there's going to mg, m is 5, g you can take 10, so that's a 50 Newton. So it's mg that I'm writing as a 50 Newton as a magnitude. Now what next point you can do is solve this and say that the forces are balanced. So forces must be equal in x direction, they must be balanced in y direction, they must be balanced because it's not moving in equilibrium. Even though it's not written that this is not moving, though it says suspended means stationary, you can think of, or from the picture you can also indicate understood that this is stationary. Now component of this tension will be two components, so you can make these two components. This is going to be T1 cos 30 and this is going to be T1 sin 30. Because T1 is a vector can be made component into two perpendicular directions, particularly in x and y direction that we are treating. This angle is 60. So you will have a one component lying in this direction, another component lying in this direction. They will represent T2. So this is going to be T2 cos 60 and this is going to be T2 sin 60. Now you can write all the forces in the direction of x and the direction of y. So if you write all the forces in the direction of x, so we can write, let me write over here, we can claim x has to be 0. That means net force along the x direction must be 0. Which says there are two components, this is a positive, this is a negative, they must be to 0, or you can say they must be equal since they are opposite. So you write T1 cos 30 is equal to T2 cos 60. T2 cos 60. Now you can put the values, the relation between T1 and T2. So this is T1 cos 30 and cos 2 getting cancelled out. So that's the one equation you're getting. Then you can pick this Fy, vertical component of forces must be 0, equilibrium condition, which will give you T1 sin 30 plus T2 sin 60 must be equal to mg, which is 50. Now you can solve these two equations. Now let me put the values over here. T1 sin 30 is 1 by 2 plus T2, which is into multiplied by sin 60, which is root 3 by 2. And this 2 can be taken this side, so that will become 100. Anyway, so I have made the calculation quick, you can check it. So there are two equations, equation number 1, equation number 2. They can be handled together to find the value of T1 and T2. Then you can check which one are the corresponding answer. How to solve then? From first T1 you can substitute, T2 you can substitute on the second. So if we do so, it's going to be T1 root 3, I'm writing the second equation, so T1 plus root 3 times T2. In that case, you can write it as a T1 root 3 is equal to 100. If you simplify it, so that's root 3 becomes 3 plus 1, that's become 4, so it's become 4T1. 4T1 is equal to 100. So from here you will find the value of T1. T1 is coming as 100 by 4, that is 25 Newton. You can substitute this value of T1 over here, so you can get the T2, and T2 will turn up as 25 root 3. Now you can see which options are matching. So T1 must be 25, yes, that's a 25. T2 must be 25 root 3, so that is A and D. So you search A and D, so properly answer B becomes correct answer. Hence B is the right answer. Well, now let's move towards this Newton's laws of motion as a concept. Though this chapter is also known as Newton's laws of motion, so it includes so many things. Now we will be precisely focusing on what the Newton's laws of motion are. And as you people know, there are 3 laws of motion that are given by the Newton, right? So we are going to just revise those laws in detail, and then we'll start using those laws in order to solve problem, because in examinations they won't ask you the definition of Newton's laws or what the statements are in the first and second. Yes, what will be asked is going to be the questions based on that, or the interpretation of these laws. So let me explain this. So this is of Newton, and this is also known as law of inertia. We will talk, and the statement can be stated like this. Statement can be given in various formats. So this is the one way of giving it. So it says, according to this law, a system will remain, did you mark the important terms? System will remain in state of rest or of uniform motion unless a net external force acts on it. So this simply says, if you consider any system, and if it is in a state of rest or if it is moving with velocity, then you'll find that the system will maintain state of rest or uniform motion until and unless you apply a force, and that force has to be applied externally, and it should be net. That means net force should not be zero. So you can apply so many forces, but in such a way that net force is non-zero. So net non-zero external force, if you are applying on this, then the state of rest and the state of motion will change. Otherwise, it will maintain its state of motion or a state of rest. It's both true. That means if you apply a force, then this state will change, and you will say if the state will change, then you need to apply a force. Okay. So, and this is true for all system. That means no matter what the system is. In the last video we talked about the system. That means any consideration, any part that you consider, maybe a single body or collection of bodies. So based on this, we can say this is related to basically kinematics and dynamics together. And if an object is at rest, that means velocity is zero. Or if it is moving with velocity, that means velocity is constant. Now, if you want to cover these two things together, we can conclude that the velocity will be zero or will be constant, means this acceleration is zero as per the definition, because we know as the rate of change of velocity. If acceleration is zero, that means velocity is not changing. So whether it's a zero or this, you will find this, and this is both ways true. That means if acceleration is zero, there will be two conditions. Either it will be the rest condition, or it will be the condition of uniform motion or uniform velocity, and these two together will make this, right? So basically it says, this first law says, if acceleration is zero, net force has to be zero, and if net force is zero, acceleration has to be zero. So this is the interpretation of state of rest and state of uniform motion. Then this law can be read like this. It simply says, if A is zero, that means object is either at rest or moving with uniform velocity. This will imply force, net force is going to be zero. When we write F means net force, so net force has to be zero. This also implies otherwise. That means if net force is found to be zero in any system, and its acceleration is going, that means object will remain at rest or moving with a constant velocity. Right? So this is the first law of Newton, that basically says acceleration and force, they will be simultaneously zero. And also it says that if one is non-zero, if this is non-zero, then it must be non-zero. If this is non-zero, then it must be non-zero, right? That means it says the acceleration and force will be zero simultaneously, and if they are non-zero, then it will be true for both of them, right? And you will find the famous equation F equal to ma. We're going to simplify this testimony for particular statements. That means justify these statements, okay? And interpret it in terms of inertia. Inertia means the condition, or let me write what the inertia actually refers to. So inertia. Let me first define what this inertia is, and then we can relate it this. So inertia is basically inherent tendency of any object or of an object to oppose any change in its state. When I say state, I mean either a state of rest or a state of motion. So there's an inherent tendency of all the objects that if you try to change the state, that means if any object is at rest, you want to move it, so it's going to be opposed by the object. If you want to stop it, it's going to be opposed by the body inherently. That means it's an inbuilt tendency, and this inbuilt tendency is known as inertia. So inertia is basically to maintain the state. Whatever the state the object is, it would like to maintain its state, right? And that also means, and it is at rest, it will not start moving by its own. No, it cannot move by its own. This is because of inertia. And if an object is moving and you find it cannot stop itself by its own, to stop it, you need to apply some retarding force or deceleration. Just like to move it, you need to apply some acceleration. So that means acceleration and deceleration has to come from outside. And in order to bring those acceleration and deceleration, you need to have a force. That means if acceleration is non-zero, force should not be applied on it, right? So inertia that maintains its tendency, whether it is of rest or whether it's motion. That means rest object would like to be remain at rest. Moving object will try to maintain its motion. It will not stop by its own. And you can experience like you are riding on a scooter, and if you want to stop, so few things you need to do. First, you need to leave this accelerator so that it slows down. Then you need to apply brakes, and until you do this, you will find that that will keep on moving. Okay. Similarly, if you want to start moving any object, you need to push it or maybe pull it. Until unless you do this, it will not be moving. So that inherent tendency, inbuilt tendency, is known as inertia, and this inertia is measured by mass. That means if an object has more mass, that means it will have a more inertia. And if an object has a less mass, then it has less inertia. So inertia is directly proportional to mass. And you can think of, let's say there are two objects. One is a small object moving with velocity v, and one is a large object moving with velocity v. They will oppose their change in motion, right? And if you want to stop both of them, which is going to be easier to stop, you can think of smaller because this is a less mass. Larger means it has a high mass. So if you find that the object with less mass will be easy to stop, that means it's a position to change smaller. That means its inertia is smaller when compared with this, and it is going to be to stop M2 because it's of large mass, and you can see that, or you can experience that in practice. And because of the large mass, that means it has a more inertia. That means it's change by a large amount, larger force in order to stop M2. So whenever we talk about inertia, you refer it with the mass. So mass is inertia. Mass is sometimes also known as translational inertia. Translational inertia. we are talking about translational dynamics. That's why this is called translational inertia. In rotation, we will have something called a rotational inertia. Anyway, so few point that I can quickly summarize over here. In the first law, this first law talks about relation between A and F. Not exactly the relation, but it says how they are linked together. They will be simultaneously zero or simultaneously non-zero. That's what the point is. And it is related to inertia. So sometimes we also called it as a law of inertia. Law of inertia. There are other points related to the first law, like this depends on the frame of reference and it's not true for all the frame of references. So we will deal that separately. And for the beginning point of view, you can just remember these important points. Well, after learning this first law, let me state what the second law says. First law basically talks about relation between this kinematics and dynamics. Basically, second will also be doing the same thing, but it more precisely is going to define the force. So it will give us the definition of the force. So the second law statement can be written in this form, that the force acting on a system, this is equal to, or you can say can be defined as rate of change of linear momentum of that system. So if you consider any system as an object, or you can think of a collection of objects, if you find the linear system, then find the rate of change of that system, that will be equal to force applied or acting on that system. And we say this force is a net external force. So it is a net force first of all, and it is external force, that is force applied from externally. So in order to understand this second law properly, first we need to understand what this quantity is, which is called linear momentum. So let's talk about the linear momentum and its definition, and then rate of change of this. So linear momentum. This linear momentum is represented by a letter called P, and P as a vector, so it's a vector quantity. So linear momentum represented by P, which is a vector quantity. And how it is defined, it may define it mathematically. This P is equal to mass into. So this is the definition of linear momentum, and m for mass of the object, v for velocity of the object. So idea is, let's say if you have any object, so this is an object which carries mass m and it is moving with velocity v. So this mass of the object is fixed, normally remains fixed, and v is the velocity with which it is moving. So its motion is coming because of the velocity. Now in kinematics, we used to use this velocity to describe the motion. We were not worried about the mass. Since we are talking about the dynamics, in dynamics mass plays very important role because that's the inertia. So if we want to represent the motion, that means we want to represent the velocity in terms of these dynamics alone will not be sufficient. So what we need to do, we need to multiply this velocity with this inertia. So when we multiply this velocity with this inertia, it becomes another quantity, and that another quantity is called as linear momentum. So in nutshell, we can say linear momentum is representative of motion of the object. So that represents, basically it represents motion of an object, motion of an object or system, you can call for that matter. So if somebody asks what is a linear momentum, you say linear momentum is a quantity that represent motion of an object. Motion means it's a link to the velocity, and ultimately if you look at it, it's representing the velocity because mass is a constant, right? So it's going to be m into v. Now whenever you get this velocity, then there are two things we need to be clear about. One is the magnitude of that physical quantity. So you'll find the magnitude of this quantity is going to be mod of p, which you can write a p, which is also can be written as mod of p vector, and is going to be mod of m into v vector. And we can write in short, it's going to be p is equal, which is always positive, v which is a magnitude, that means you need to take a positive value. So m into v becomes magnitude. Whatever what about this direction of p? So where this linear momentum vector will be pointing, because since it's a vector, so we need to know these two things, because these two things are very critical for a vector. Once we know this, we can use that vector for the purpose of addition, subtraction, differentiation, and other purpose, right? So direction, when we talk about the direction, that means it's a direction of p going to be, m is a positive number. Whenever there is a positive number is multiplying with any vector, this positive number simply changes the length of that vector. That means magnitude. It does not change the direction. So in nutshell, we can say the direction of p vector is going to be the direction of velocity. So p is directed in the direction of velocity. So in this particular case, you will say p is in this direction. And how much this magnitude carries? This carries is equal to m into v. Makes sense? So you can remember the direction as well as magnitude of this linear momentum, which is defined by this p vector, which is equal to m into v. And the next point that is important for any physical quantity that we know is this unit. What the unit we are going to write for it? So you can write it's going to be having unit of mass as well as unit of this thing, which is velocity. So you can write it as a kg into meter per second. And you also know that if you multiply second upside downside, so it become kg meter per second square, and you will you can verify it later on. So that will become Newton. So this can also be Newton into second. So unit of linear momentum is Newton second, or you can write as a kg meter per second. Both are going to be the correct answer. This is in terms of SI units, and this is in terms of Newton. Both are acceptable, right? So that's the linear momentum, and this linear momentum, once we have understood what this linear momentum is, we can use this to complete this second law of motion, which is also known as law of momentum. This is also known as law of momentum. Now you can think of why it's known as law of momentum, because it uses linear momentum in order to define the force. And now we can complete this definition of second law, that is definition of force as well. So force is a rate of change of linear momentum, and you have understood this linear momentum is a quantity called P. And it is written as m into v. That's how the definition goes. Mass is something we know that's given to us. That's the object's mass. V is the velocity, we have already understood. So rate of change is an operation, you know, that operation is called differentiation. And so we will defining the force as force is equal to dp by dt. So that's how the force is defined. So this becomes a formula that says force is equal to dp by dt, and p is dt is a rate of change with respect to time. So when rate of change, we generally refer to it with respect to time. So it's with respect to time. Now we can further go for simplification and put the value of p over here. So let me write over here. So we need to say dp by dt. It means we need to differentiate that above equation both sides with respect to t. Come as a d upon dt m into v. Now there are two quantities that are under multiplication, so we will apply the formula called product formula. And as per the product formula, you write it as a function as such, and you differentiate the second one, and then you write the second as such, and differentiate will, and this dp by dt, since it is a force, so that will become the definition of force. So you'll find the force can be written as m dv by dt. Now you must be knowing this dv relation. So dv by dt is defined acceleration. So f is going to be equal to m into a for acceleration plus v into dm by dt. dm by dt is going to be known as the rate of change of mass with respect to time. So how the mass is changing. That means if a system is such that, or your object is such that its mass is changing over the time, that means it might be the case that mass is leaking out, or maybe mass is being added up. So if mass is changing, then this term will be surviving. Hence the net formula will become as written over here. So the force is basically defined in simplified manner as this. It is equal, its F is equal to ma plus v dm by dt. But in primary level or basic level, or in most of your syllabus, you'll find the system that we are considering or the object that we are considering constant mass. So we can claim from here if constant m is constant. So that's very important point. So you, whenever you are going to apply the Newton's laws, first you see on which you are applying this Newton's law, whether the mass is constant or not. So if you find the mass is constant, then you will find dm by dt will become 0. dm by dt will become 0 because as per the differentiation rule, you know differentiation of a constant with respect to time will always be 0. This will further indicate a definition of force which will be more simplified, and it's going to be F is A plus 0. 0, you drop it, right? So this becomes the formula, which is the popular formula that you already know, and you need to now learn the use of this formula in a, again, proper manner. So how a force goes, it's defined as per the linear momentum, the rate of change. So you defined it, then you can differentiate of change, find these two terms. This is the proper definition of a force. That is, this is without any condition. Whatever the system is, you can apply this. This can be applied always. However, find your system will have a constant mass. That means mass will not change. Since mass is not changing, then dm by dt becomes 0. Hence, this formula comes in. So that means this formula is true for a system which has a constant mass, right? And for that sake, what you need to write it as F, which is a net force on the system. Mind it, what is F? F is a net force. So if a system is given to us, you will be drawing the free body diagram to find the net force first. And m is the net mass or the total mass of the system which is moving with acceleration a. So it is the mass of the system which is moving with acceleration a, and F is the net force acting on that mass that causing this acceleration. This is how these three quantities are linked together. And now in order to solve the problem, we need to simply apply this. Now again, since this is a quantity, you can always fragment it into component forms. That means you can do x component motion, y component motion, z component motion, or you can directly use a vector format. So if you are working for x component, you will writing this. That means x component of force is equal to mass into acceleration in x direction. Similarly, work for the y component separately. So y component of motion will be m a y. These y are subscripts. In similar for z directions, in z is going to be m into az. Now you can see in these component calculations, I have placed this subscript for fx, but not for m, because mass is not a vector quantity. So it will be used all in either of the x component, where there is a y component, where there is a z component. So this was for x, this for y component of motion, this for z. So you see a system, draw all forces, make all forces components in x, y, z direction respectively, and then put the force value in the x direction, max. From here you find ay, then you find az, then you can find the total acceleration of that system. Once you are able to find the total acceleration of the system, then you can connect with the kinematics. How you can connect? You got to know a, then you can find the velocity. Once you got to know velocity, you can find position. So that means this will be the kinematic version. And how to find this a, that is because of F. Now you can see the link is completed. For any motion to take place, you need to apply a force. Once you apply a force, then Newton's law will be used to find the acceleration. Once you got to know acceleration, then come to the kinematics, find the velocity. Once you are able to find velocity, you can further calculate the position. That means you know when a motion started, how the motion started, and how it is going on. So you can describe the motion as well as knowing the cause of it. So that's why the second law is the most important law, because it relates this kinematics to this dynamics, or we can say dynamics include these two. So this is something that connects the two chapters together. Moreover, one quantity that you have understood is the linear momentum. Linear momentum is description of or a representation of motion, and it's linked with the force. So the second law is okay. Now let's go for the next, or that's the last law, known as third law. So here is the third law of motion. Statement is very simple and very popular. and most of you must be knowing. It's in shortest form, it can be written as to every action there is an equal and opposite reaction. So it basically talks about action reaction pairs. If there is any action, the reaction is going to be there. Reaction will be equal in magnitude and opposite in direction. Right. So here action mean force. So if you apply a force on any object, then the object is going to react or respond or give a reaction. In reaction, the object will apply a force on you, and that force will be equal in magnitude and will be opposite in direction. Right. So that's called third law of motion. Practical example you can think of, like if you are kicking the wall, right? So if you kick the wall, then you'll feel pain in your body where you kick from where you have kicked it. That means you push the wall has pushed you by the same amount. The harder you hit the wall, harder you are going to feel the pain because it's going to be equal reaction. So they are called the action reaction pair. Better we can understood in this way, let's say very simple system we are considering. There is a block which is being placed on a ground or on a table or on any surface. So this block carries some mass, and this is being placed on this surface. Now we have understood till now that something called free body diagram. So we can make the free body diagram of this block. That means we can watch this block separately. We can also watch this ground or this surface separately, and we can see how the interactions are going on. You'll find this as per our understanding that this block is going to push the ground downside. This is pushing the ground downside. So when you place a block on a surface, then you find this block start pushing the surface down. So that is, you can think of action that took place on the ground. Hence, this is going to give you a reaction or give reaction to this block, and that is opposite to this. That means direction will be opposite, so it will be in the upward direction, and it will have the same magnitude. So we can write it as an R. We call it as a normal reaction, by the way. So this is called action pair. That means action reaction pair, they act on two different objects, isn't it? And when this M is pushing the ground downside, then the ground is pushing this block M upside. And you can think of otherwise as well. Ground is pushing this object upside, so object is pushing the ground downside. These are action reaction pair. What should not be confused is that normal reaction and mg, they are action reaction pair. No, they are not the action reaction pair. Mg is a different force, and yes, this mg was the cause that created this action, but this is the action and this reaction, or you can action, this is the reaction. So they are action reaction pair. Generally we call it as the action because when you place the block, start pushing it, so this starts pushing back to the block, and this normal reaction, they becomes action reaction pair. Few important points that we can extract from here is these action reaction pairs are acting on two different objects, first of all, and they are opposite in direction, they have the same magnitude, and if you combine these together, then this action reaction pair will become cancel out each other. That means it will become internal stuff. It means when you see this together, then you'll find this action reaction pair will not be visible, but if you want to see it, you just detach them and see it in that way. And you must have understood other examples like recoiling of gun when it is being fired and all that thing, because bullet when comes out from a gun, so bullet is being pushed in the forward direction by the gun. So bullet also pushes the gun but in backward direction. Similarly, battle tanks, they recoil back, and so many things you can think of. In fact, the important example, when you walk on the ground, so how you are walking on the ground, let's say this is a ground you want to walk. So you observe your steps, right? What do? You push the earth in the backward direction. So you push the earth in the backward direction. This is the force applied by you on the earth. And this earth was not so big, then you will find by rotating like this faster. Since it's very heavy, so the effect of your force on the earth is very minimum. But what the earth does, earth applies a force on you as a reaction, hence acceleration. Because or we can say hence you get a force, that this force is equal to m into a, and this a brings acceleration, hence it brings velocity to you and you start moving. So here this pair, that means you are pushing the earth back, earth is giving you reaction, and that reaction is in the opposite direction, right? And you pushing the earth in the backward, and why? Because you want to take the reaction in the forward direction, because you have calculated it that you want to go in the forward direction. And this is inherent, we don't give too much attention to this, it happens. But if you do give the attention, then you'll find this third law is acting over here, right? Now if this surface is good enough, and if you are unable to give the this action to earth, then earth will not give you, and hence you will not be able to walk. So for your walking, you must be able to give this action, and then the reaction must come in, right? If you want to run faster, then you need to give the reaction very stronger. That means you push the earth more strongly when you want to run. That means you want to make more acceleration. That means you want to get more force, hence create more action, so that more force can be found in terms of reaction, because it comes in equal amount. So more you give the action, that means if action is higher, stronger enough, reaction will be stronger enough. As you're walking, in fact, you can connect it like when you're in water. So your swimming exercise is simply like this. You push your hand, water backside using your hand. So you are pushing the water backside. Why you are pushing the water backside? Simply because you are expecting from the water to give reaction, and that reaction is going to be opposite. That means reaction will come in to you in the forward direction, so you will be moving or swimming in the forward direction. And if you want to swim faster, you will give the strong reaction, because it is equal amount that it reacts back. Okay, and you can now observe in your daily life, in fact in all of your motions or observations, you'll find this third law is going to be valid and will be taking place. This third law is very important, and we give least attention to this. It works there, and for our calculations it's very important whenever we are going to draw free body diagram. So we will be having interaction pairs, and this is just one example for normal reaction. It can be for anything, like in gravitation you have understood. Let's say there is a force, there's a mass m1, there's a mass m2. You might have gone through in your previous classes. We will be learning in detail. In law of gravitation, you'll find they interact. That means m2 pulls this m1 towards its direction, and similarly m1 pulls m2 towards its direction. Now you'll find these forces are equal. So these forces are equal, opposite. So they are in pair. So for action-reaction pair to take place, there is no need for the two objects to be in contact. They can give the action-reaction even they are in contact, as well as they are not in contact. Or simply we can say the gravity pulls an object by mg. Then the object also pulls the earth by the same force mg. So they are being pulled by each other. But this object goes downside simply because inertia. And this has a high inertia, hence earth is not moving upside. So when you have any object and it is having mass m, so mg force is the force that the earth pulls the object. Then the object also pulls the earth by the same mg. This m is of the object, not of the earth. So, but for earth this force is going to be visible, hence earth and earth has a high inertia, hence earth will to be moving this object from one side. So they are also equal and opposite. That means you can say they are action reaction. This is action reaction pair. This is action here I have given example of pair. So you can see everywhere there is going to be action reaction pair, and it's a very vast and very important law of Newton. So these are the three laws of Newton that we have discussed. First law, they are named like that. First law, which is also known as the law of inertia. Second law, that is also known as law of momentum. Then this, and that's a law of action reaction pair. We can call it as a law of action reaction pair. Right. Based on these three laws, we can solve the questions. So what the strategy to solve the questions will be, let me talk about that point. Okay, so to illustrate it, better would be we take an example. This is one of the simplest example, but going to be very important in order to understand how we use these Newton's laws and what are the steps. So to understand these steps to solve the problem by very basic. It says there is a M mass block which mass is given as a 5 kg and a force of 40 Newton is being applied, and this surface is smooth. A smooth surface means there's going to be no friction acting, and friction we will be dealing later on. So this is the situation. We have been asked about two things: normal reaction of the block on the block and the acceleration of the block. So what we need to talk about, everything we need to talk about is about the block. So what we do basically, we consider our system carefully and depending upon our need. Since our need is to know the information about the block, so we will be drawing the free body diagram. So first step will be to identify which is going to be our system. So that's the first step. And here the block. So whatever the system, that next step is going to be to draw the free body diagram system. So of this block. If there are multiple blocks, then you can think of which block is of your interest and which blocks FBD you require to solve the problem. So you draw the free body diagram of the required system. And here we have chosen this block because the simple one. So block is the only thing that we can see apart from the ground, right? So what are the forces that are going to act on this block? You will find one external, all the external force we show. This is the force that is already there. And there's going to be non-contact force called gravity, and then you will look for it. There's only single contact from the ground, so ground will give you a normal reaction in the upward direction. So there's since so there will be no force coming in the horizontal direction, and these are going to be the forces acting on it. Now we will talk about, or we will draw the forces, total forces in the x direction, which is F, total direction, which is going to be N minus R minus mg. So this is these are the how we can draw the forces. This is x y component of force. Then we will talk about what is happening in the x direction. So x component, let me write over here, x component of motion. Well, this is just to explain you. When you solve, you can solve directly. This is how we take the step. First step is to identify the system. Second is to draw the free body diagram. Then resolve the forces in the two directions. Then write the x component of motion. Now in x component, there is a force, only this force acting. And this is given as a 40 newtons. So that means Fx is non-zero. So since Fx is non-zero, then you will apply the equation Fx is equal to mass into acceleration in x direction. So let's say this is moving in the x direction by acceleration a. So this equation will become F is equal to a. Now you can put the value of F, which is 40, then value of m, which is 5, and into a. From here you will be able to find out a for acceleration in the x direction is basically 40 by 5. So this is going to be 8 meter per second square. So that's going to be acceleration in the x direction, right? Now solve for the y component of motion. Then you need to write Fy is equal to m into ay. But you will be guaranteed that this block is moving only in the horizontal direction. This block is not going to move in the upward direction because this is moving on the horizontal direction as shown in the figure. So you'll find clearly, since you are able to identify acceleration in the vertical direction is going to be 0 because it's not moving in that direction, right? So since acceleration came out to be 0, hence you can force in the y direction is going to be 0, which you can already which you can also say in that term that it is in equilibrium in the y direction. So this block is in equilibrium along the y direction but not in equilibrium along the x direction, because in the x direction it is carrying acceleration. Now you have got to know what is total force in the y direction. So that's the total force in the y direction. So we are counting like this is Fx and this is Fy. This is how we count, right? So we need to make this Fy 0. Once you make this, you will get Nr minus Mg equal to 0, which basically give us value of normal reaction. This normal reaction is basically, and M is 5, G can be taken 10, so you can say 50 Newton. So normal reaction on the block is going to be of magnitude 50 Newton, and in which direction it is going to act, you can see this, it is acting in the vertically upward direction. So you got to know the normal reaction. Moreover, you need to talk about this acceleration. So we have already calculated is 8 meter per second square. It is in the direction of force. So acceleration acts in the direction of net force, so that is in that direction. So here we are basically visualizing X motion independently, Y motion independently. If there is any force acting in the Z direction, that is also to be considered independently, and need to apply these equations in all the directions. And you will find it's going to be very simple once you are able to follow this strategy. What is going to be happen? Question will have a different level of difficulties. But idea will remain to identify the system, then draw the free body diagram of that system, and then write the component of forces in x direction or the directions which are suitable. May not be horizontal and vertical all the way or all the time. You can have any two perpendicular directions depending upon the question. So after writing that, then look for the x component, what happens in the x component, whether it is accelerating or whether it is constrained not to move. If it is accelerating, you can write F equal to ma, find A. If it is this y direction, it is constrained not to move in the y direction. And this question will not say that it's not going to move in the y direction. We need to see it, because this is a block applying a force in the horizontal direction. So definitely if it will move, if it is going to move, it will be moving only in the horizontal direction, not in the vertical direction. So that is what we need to interpret. That means it has a constrained motion and not go in the vertical direction. Ay is going to be 0. To identify Ay, that means you can simply say it is in equilibrium along the y direction of forces. Write all the forces, make them 0. That will give you equation, and you will find your answer. And you can also link, when we talk about the normal reaction, we said normal reaction does not own formula. Its formula comes based on the question. And here you can see normal reaction is coming as mg just because we identify direction, no acceleration there. So this is the question condition that gives the value or formula for normal reaction, right? So, and then this is how you can solve these equations. So we call it the Newton's equation. So making Newton equation, then solving Newton equation will give you answer. This is going to be the strategy for all the questions in this chapter. Okay. Well, let me give you a homework problem. So that's a homework problem. And it says the given figure, we need to find the tension in the string. So that's a string. So figure, you can think of what it is. It is some smooth ground or surface. On this smooth surface, two blocks are there, M1 and M2. They are connected by a string. So that's a string. And it pulled by M1 is being pulled by 60 Newton. M1 and M2, their magnitudes are known to you. And you need to find what the tension in the string is going to be for this particular question. And you can solve, so you just follow the strategy that I have explained in the previous question. And no matter how difficult and easy it is, you need to simply identifying system, drawing a BD, writing Newton's equations, and solving to get your answers, right? So you can find all the related answer from this about this question. Well, so this is all about this video. In this video lecture, you have understood a very important aspect, which is theoretical Newton's laws of motion. And these laws has to be understood and grasped properly so that you can use in future calculations. So in that entire chapter, we will be using this strategy. Okay. So thank you everyone. Have a great time.